So if you were to bring the black share of wealth at least to the black share of the population, it would require an additional at least $10 trillion.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Grand Rising family.
Grand Rising. How's everyone doing today? Got some special guests in the building. So how we do? So I guess let's go around. My name's Moya. I'm in the Mass Media Group. I'm gonna send it to my partner, and we can go around.
I'm Ann Kim, also with Emin. I'm just off camera today, sitting here in my Easter bonnet, but you know I'm here to support the camp.
Oh, let me introduce myself. My name is Chris Lodgson, Coalition for Just and Equitable California. Also, part of the team here at ETM Media. And to my left, we got a super special guest in the building.
Man,
this dude
says the general. Right. So good morning, everybody. My name is Samuel Nathaniel Brown. I'm the co-founder of the Anti-Violence Safety and Accountability Project, known as ASAP, and also the co-chair of the California Abolition Act Coalition to end involuntary servitude and slavery in the California penal system once and for all. And it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, thanks, brother, for coming through. And obviously, thanks, Kim, thanks, Chris, and thank you for coming through. So I guess let's kind of get into it.
Doing with ACA 3, that's revolutionary.
Yeah, definitely.
What you say, Kim?
I said thank you for all the work that you're doing on ACA 3. It's revolutionary. Really, really past time to get that done, ending involuntary servitude. So congrats.
I totally agree with you, and thank you very much. And the congratulations is to all of us, because it's no one person getting this over the finish line by themselves. So thank you, and I disseminate it to everybody.
Wonderful, brother. So if y'all haven't seen our interview, I did an interview with our brother Samuel Brown on this historic ACA 3. Please check it out on our channel. We was going through the ACA 3. Actually, as a matter of fact, since we are here, let's go through what this bill is. Sam, do you kind of want to walk us through the ACA 3 and what it is, and kind of give us your take and historical background on this, brother?
Yeah, no problem. So thank you very much for the question and the opportunity to talk about ACA 3. So I'm formerly incarcerated. I've been out of prison for about close to 120 days now, and I served 24 years. Over the course of that 24 years, I did a great deal of, evolving and maturing and growing. But also I worked a number of jobs and assignments inside that prison, and those prisons and on the plantations, because that's what they were. I worked a number of them. And those jobs, they didn't offer any certification, the bulk of them. They didn't prepare me to step back into the world and make a lateral transition. They didn't pay a decent wage so that I could pay, restitution or court fees or victim restitution or taxes or be a factor in the life of my children or my family. They didn't provide me any of that, right? And oftentimes they would conflict with getting an educational program, going to college or participating in the self-help program. And so it wasn't just me that was dealing with this, but it was a number of people. And from a historical perspective, that's just from a criminological perspective. From a historical perspective, the practices that we currently see in the California Department of Corrections are just an extension of slavery. It quite frankly never ended. That's the bottom line. You know, many people are under the impression that the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, but it didn't. It conditioned it. And what it conditioned it on was a felony conviction. You know, and anyone can find themselves in trouble with the law. And if they put you through that due process machine, you walk in a citizen and you walk out that machine a slave. And so what we have today is a correctional institutional system that caters to private prison interests and people who benefit off the prison industrial complex. And they've been utilizing this 13th Amendment loophole, this exclusionary language, which reads, involuntary servitude and slavery are prohibited except as punishment for a crime. So they've been utilizing that loophole for a long time to decimate our communities, target people of color, and at the same time, make trillions of dollars. So ACA 3, I was fortunate to write it inside of a cell. And I sent it out to my wife, Jamelia Land. And she had the privilege of taking it to then Assembly member Cindy Kamlager, who was in total agreement that slavery has no place in the year 2022. You know, so she decided to back it. And since that time, I've been paroled by the grace of God since then. And we've gotten through the Assembly, the Public Safety Committee unanimously. We've gotten through appropriations unanimously. And now we're on the Senate side. And what we're really seeking to do is get it on the ballot for November, which we will. You know, we're going to speak it into existence so that the public can vote on it and end this travesty once and for all. And everybody could be a part of making the change that is so desperately needed. So I didn't mean to be so long-winded, but that's a little background on ACA 3.
No, that's fine. Actually, can I just jump in real quick more? I want to ask Sam a follow-up question. Can you talk to the family about what actually motivated you to write the legislation now known as ACA 3? Like what was it going on in the prisons that you faced that said, you know what, I got to do something, I got to make a change, I got to write something that makes this different?
All right, thank you for that. So first of all, I was voluntold, right? I was voluntold by my wife, like, you need to do something. Hey, you remember John Q? Remember John Q and his son, his wife was, he's like, do something, John. That's how I felt. My wife charged me, you know what I'm saying? Once we learned about the law and the system, and she was like, baby, you got to do something. And I was like, oh, Lord, I got to do something. This is a travesty. Nah. So I was a healthcare facility maintenance worker, which means like the equivalent of a hospital janitor, environmental technician. And COVID-19 had just hit. You know, no one knew what to expect, not inside the prisons, not outside the prisons. We just knew it was a pandemic. As such, I was the first person in the state of California to be tasked with entering a cell and an office where one of the staff members worked, who actually brought the virus into the prison, had tested positive. I had to disinfect and sterilize and clean all of that. And I have a high morbidity rate, you know, for COVID-19 because I'm asthmatic and I've had a collapsed lung in the past. So I told my supervisors, I said, well, listen, I went in here and I did it, but I don't want to go and risk my life every single day, day in, day out. And they will only pay me like 75 cents an hour. You know what I'm saying? And they were taking 55% of that for restitution. And I'm like, so I can't do this every single day. I'm not going to put my life on the line. It was like, okay. And then when I actually started taking off and coming back every other day, then they told me, well, Mr. Brown, you have to work. You can't do that, or else you're going to receive a 115. And so the 115 is the modern day whip that they utilize to compel you to perform a task or a job that you otherwise would not do, right? And had I received that 115 because I was preparing to appear before the Board of Parole hearings, it would have gotten me denied. Now, it didn't matter that I have an Associate of Arts in Social Science. You know, I graduated Dean's Honors. I have an Associate of Arts transfer degree in Sociology, graduated with honors. And I also have a Bachelor's in Communication Studies, and I'm graduating magna cum laude. You know, it doesn't matter that I took thousands of hours of self-help programming. Doesn't matter that I changed my life in any of that. If I would have said no to that job, then they would have issued me that rules violation report, the 115, I would have appeared before the Board of Parole hearings. They would have denied me release based on me saying I did not want to enter a COVID-19 cell and risk my life. They would have denied me release, and the denial would have started at 15 years, went down to 10 if there was mitigating evidence, 5 if there was more mitigating evidence, and then 3, you know. And I couldn't afford it. I couldn't take that risk because they want you to do at least a minimum of 5 years without getting a 115 or rules violation report. And if I would have received that, they would have determined that I was an unreasonable risk to society and could not have been released back into society. So this is what's taking place in our penal system, and so many people have no idea about that, you know. So what I spoke to my wife about it. She was like, well, can't you just refuse or stop? And I'm like, no, because she said, can't you appeal it? And I said, I could appeal it, but it would be moot because the Constitution backs their codified law. You know, the Title 15 is codified law that they use to govern the Department of Corrections. But what it's anchored in is the Constitution, which is Article 1, Section 6, which makes it permissible for them to punish you for not performing because no one can be a slave until they're convicted of a crime. It's in the Constitution. So that was their backing. And she was like, well, baby, we got to change the Constitution. And I'm like, yeah, we got to change the Constitution. And we're part of the Abolish Slavery National Network. And we were seeking to do this because, you know, the movement around the 13th Amendment across the whole nation. And so I wrote the proposal and I told you the rest and sent it out. But that was the backdrop for it. You know, it was just time to stop this travesty that's taking place with so many of us. They're placing forced labor over rehabilitation. They're placing forced labor over public safety. And the bottom line is, even if I euphemize it and call it forced labor, it's really slavery. The bottom line is slavery still exists and it shouldn't exist. And you have organizations like the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, who are corporations and politicians and lobbyists that band together to present model legislation all throughout the nation. You know what I'm saying? Not just here in California, but all throughout the nation. And they push it to these politicians. Then the politicians do whatever they can to get the stuff enacted in their individual locations or their states, right? So one being like the 3 strikes law. That came from ALEC. And it passed in like 34 states at one time. But we thought it was only in California, you know, and this is just the same thing that they were doing when they so-called ended slavery after the Civil War. They said that, or they came up with the black codes. I'm sorry, there it is there. So what many people don't know, but if you take a closer look, you'll see that they presented the 13th Amendment early in 1865, somewhere like January or February, whatever. Then the black codes were presented a couple months later. The black codes were then ratified in like November, and then the 13th Amendment was ratified in like December. So basically they created the loophole, and then the dates show that it was all intentional. They specifically waited till they had a method that they can capitalize off of putting slavery behind the walls, you know what I'm saying, and still keep that, and still keep the resources, which was the black man, that they needed coming in. And so you find today's modern day black codes are like 3 strikes laws, life without the possibility of parole, gun enhancements, you know, these unnecessary laws that just decimate our communities, and they're distributed disproportionately. So all of that said, this is why we need ACA 3, because it shuts that down. It's anachronistic criminological concepts from a classical era that have no place in today's society. And it's time for us to change it, and we the change makers of our time. So that's why I wrote it, because something had to be done.
Yo, can I ask one more follow-up? You, Moya, I want to touch on something that I think we don't know as much about as we should. And Sam, if you could add to our knowledge and understanding of this, in addition to the ending of the slavery and voluntary servitude exception in our state constitution, there's also additional measures, work that you want to do to actually proactively do rehabilitation and actually change the conditions. So from my understanding, the ending slavery and voluntary servitude piece is a necessary first piece. But what are the other pieces that you could talk to us about that also need to happen too?
Well, we also need to find a way for the plantation to give back to the communities that it took from. That's a big discussion. It's the same principle of reparations, you know, making sure that no further harm is done is one of the pillars, and also rehabilitation. And so when we talk about the plantation, what many people don't know is that California was recommended to join the Union in 1849. And when it was suggested to join the Union, it was for the sole purpose of expanding slaveholding territory. And so once it was ratified and made a part of the Union in 1850, that was the purpose of California. And the very federal building right now down in Los Angeles is the same spot where they used to auction off people. And now it's a federal court building. That's so it's no mistake. No, it's no coincidence. You know what I mean? And so when you fast forward to today, 2022, with over 30 prisons, California is the premier plantation state. The premier plantation state. And it's been drawing resources from our communities of color the entire time, from its inception. So in the spirit of reparations, you know, and what it's about is getting that plantation to start giving back to the communities that it had taken from. And one of the ways we do that is find ways to allow minority-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses to be able to contract with and provide services inside the prisons. And that way, those funds will not just be allocated to these people who've privatized, because there's 12 sectors to the prison industrial complex. I mean, you have, and I don't remember them all off the top of my head anymore, but there's from architecture and construction to healthcare to clothing to food to commissary to data services to telehealth and transportation. I mean, and each one of these sectors have been privatized. Those are all services that can be contracted with people in the communities where those prisons are. That money could be coming back into the community. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the long-term strategy without me going into too many details about it. And I thank you for asking that.
No, that's a fact. I got one more. Sorry, bro, but I gotta ask too. So you talked about, Sam, you talked about the work that you're doing here in California. You also mentioned that there's a national network too. Can you talk about, or just give us an understanding of where else in the country the movement to end slavery, end involuntary servitude is going on, and what your connection is to that national work?
Thank you. So my wife and I, Jamelia, we're like some of the original members of the Abolish Slavery National Network. I've been doing this work since I've been in the prison. I would participate in these calls. Like she would be on video and I would be on the phone from the wall phone in the prison, where you have 60 seconds remaining and all that type of stuff, you know, doing what we're supposed to do. So we've been there close to the inception. And it's like 32 other states that are seeking to get the same legislation passed. Utah, Nebraska, and Colorado have been successful in doing it already. And then we have New Jersey, Louisiana, Alabama, Vermont. Vermont is at a real pivotal point in getting this legislation passed right now. We would like to go out there and support them for Juneteenth, you know, because they have a big event planned for Juneteenth around similar legislation, just like ACA 3, to get rid of exclusionary language in their constitution. So things have been it's been going really well individually. Now, on the federal level, we had U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley, who put forward this legislation, and it seems like it hit a snag, but none of us are giving up. So, because the goal is to ultimately get enough states on board to where we can change the federal constitution. And that's the ultimate.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I want to mention one thing for the audience. By the way, shout out to everybody that's in the chat right now. Big love to everybody that's in the chat. I see y'all, Freeman Media, Rap, Sister Faye, everybody pulling up, everybody that's going to watch this on the check-in replay. Appreciate y'all. Sam, thank you for joining this conversation. We're gonna keep talking with you, but I do just want to take a minute to thank you for joining this conversation and give us some context and some insight about ACA 3 and also make the connection between ACA 3 and reparations. You mentioned two pieces of reparations are guarantees of non-repetition, so stopping the harm, and also rehabilitation. Also, one other one too is restitution. So thank you for mentioning those in connection to ACA 3. Where do we find these words? Restitution, rehabilitation, guarantees of non-repetition. Where do these words come from? These come from what we understand as the international United Nations accepted forms of reparations. There's 5 distinct, specific forms of reparations. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all are so, wow, y'all fast on the ETM. Big shout out to ETM Media too. Kim on the ones and twos, you Moyo on deck. Compensation, restitution, rehabilitation, satisfaction, and guarantees of non-repetition. Compensation plus restitution plus rehabilitation plus satisfaction plus guarantees of non-repetition. That at minimum must equal reparations. So that is the minimum definition of reparations, at least as it relates to California's Reparations Commission made into law by AB 3121. And you should also know, family, that the California Reparations Commission actually this week, and we're going to talk about the hearings that happened this week. All of us, all 4 of us, by the way, were down there in San Francisco. I think we may have just lost Sam, but Sam will be on his way back. There he is, right there, coming back.
Sorry about that.
Each one of us were down there in San Francisco for the first in-person hearings of the California Reparations Commission. And on day 2 of those hearings, I think that was Thursday, like 2 or 3 days ago, the commission officially recommended that the state, as one of its proposals, actually enact something like, specifically ACA 3. It's in the actual report. And as Sam said, ACA 3 just passed the California Assembly a couple of weeks ago. So congratulations to you, Sam, and your team. I know you got a powerhouse team. Y'all work really, really hard. Big shout out to your wife, Jamelia Land. Great.
Thank you.
She is a powerful force. I mean, right? She has been making change here in the city of Sacramento and statewide for a long time. So we want to give her flowers for sure. We know she is a big, strong source of support for you, and she is a superhero, super shero in her own right.
Man,
I can do a show just with her
alone,
right? Just with, I mean, to talk about all the stuff that she's been a part of and making.
I think that's a great idea. We should do a whole show talking about all the work that she do, because her, man, she done dedicated her life just like all of us, and she does a lot of great work.
The fact.
Got my support.
Yeah.
So, Chris, since this is going to need a constitutional change, is this something that California is going to have to vote on?
Yeah, just like Sam said, yes. So this is a constitutional amendment, and let's do some basic civics. You know, this ETN, we do basic civics, basic political education. Every time you tune into this program, you get some knowledge that you didn't have before about how the government works and how you can be a part of making the government work for you. So yes, the change to the Constitution normally, almost all the time, requires the actual citizens of California to say, we want to make this change. So this is absolutely something that's going to be on our ballots in this year. Specifically, we expect it to be November. That's what we are working towards. And so California, the voters of California are going to have to weigh in and say, yes, we want to change the California Constitution to remove slavery and remove involuntary servitude from our state constitution. This is something that is gonna be done by the state of California voters, but also the state of California legislature has to run it through their process too. So the state assembly has to do it first and vote for it first. The state senate has to vote for it first, and right now it's in the state senate and it's working its way through the state senate, and then it's going to come to us as voters here in the state of California.
That's correct.
All right. We have any more questions for our brother Sam or Kim?
No, that clears it up, and he did a really thorough explanation of it going by state. So I guess all the states have to vote on it too. And you say that a couple have been successful, so they were successful in getting it voted in by the population there.
That's correct. And so, and the thing about it is, some people have written theirs up. The model, the legislation is not identical in every state. Everybody has to learn how to navigate their voting populace as well as their politicians, you know, for what works inside their state. Here in California, we're making sure that we build together a model that has everyone feeling like they're part of the change and involved. You know, we have faith-based organizations that are part of the coalition. We have institutions of education that are part of the coalition. We have numerous community organizations, community-based organizations that have been dedicated to change forever, who are supporting this legislation. We have everyday individuals, people who are incarcerated, family members that are incarcerated, crime survivors. We just want to make sure that we build a model here in California that is duplicatable in the other states, that they can follow, that encompasses involving as many people as possible. Because it's not a one person thing, it's not a black thing, it's not a white, it's a humanity thing. Slavery should not be on the books, period, in 2022. And then from a public safety perspective, we should not place priority on forced labor over rehabilitation. So that's ultimately the bottom line. That's the model that we seeking to put forward, and we need all the help that we can. And you can find more about it at endslaveryInCalifornia.org. You know, the California Abolition Act Coalition on IG and Facebook, or you can just email me yourself at sam.nathaniel.brown@gmail. And we need all the assistance we can get. This is a historical fight that's been going on for way too long. And we have the potential to end it here in California once and for all. So thank y'all for this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, brother. So we do have the call lines up. If anybody wants to call in, don't be shy. 720-740-9699. That's 720-740-9699. Hit that access code 657-2569. That's 657-2569. So yeah, thanks, Sam, for that wonderful story and information, brother. You're doing great work, you know, in the community, as we all are trying our best, you know, with the little resources that we have, right? As Black folk.
That's what we do.
Making it happen somehow, some way, man. Our ancestors are with us, you know what I mean? They're like, man, y'all got to keep pushing.
That's right.
So, Chris, before we actually get into the recap, man, I know there's something that you wanted to mention. So you want to go forth, brother?
Yeah, I want to talk about some of the stuff that actually happened during the commission meeting. So we can actually start the recap part, and then I'll pop it in here and there, because it's definitely related to what was going on at the Reparations Commission's hearing, which just happened this week. By the way, shout out to everybody that pulled up for that in person, online, the comments. Like I said before, all four of us that's on this call right now, that's on this show right now, we're actually down there in San Francisco. Big love to Sam. And that was historic. That was amazing. Oh, it was so much. It was so much. So yeah, let's get into the conversation. Then I will definitely put my stuff in there, here and there.
All right. So first, everybody, can you guys see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. Let's take it so everybody can see this. All right. So this just a little preview of it. So this clip that we're going to be playing, and I'm probably going to stop it around 5 minutes. I think this is one of the parts where we were talking about, or the task force was talking about with Dr. Grills with the communications. And so maybe we can dig into that a little deeper, but let's go ahead and play the clip. And if y'all can't hear it, let me know in the chat. But yeah, let's go.
So I know there are some additional slides or information, I think from Member Holder and then myself about the report. Thank you. Okay, so this is just revisiting the suggestions that I offered for the report. The first suggestion that I offered was changing references to Black Americans to African Americans, particularly adding a discussion that African American isn't necessarily a race, it's a distinct group or historical signifier for a distinct lineage. In my past report, I noted that African American has been used since the 1700s by African Americans to define themselves, and that they can also be interchangeably used with American freedmen. But I think the main point in terms of my suggestion to change from Black Americans to African Americans is that in AB 3121, Black Americans isn't noted or cited. African Americans is, and of course, African Americans who descend from chattel slavery is noted. So that's the suggestion that I'm offering. And then the second suggestion that I was offering, in light of the conversation that we had last time, not necessarily to plainly substitute race and racism and casteism, but to have a discussion about how African Americans who descend from chattel slavery not only suffer from racism, but also casteism. And then I know Member Holder had a potential
Madam Chair,
request.
if I could offer a suggestion. If you're going to, you have report number one, you have two recommendations. You want to ask for a motion and do them separately, bifurcate them so that they'll be acted on individually.
All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen there. Sorry, my bad, family. I thought I was gonna hit the clip about the communications, but that was actually Chairperson Camila Moore's recommendation for the report. So I don't know, Chris, maybe let me stop sharing.
Yeah, that's a great place to start, actually, too. I would actually prefer to start there. Yeah, that's actually a great place.
I agree. I've got to talk about this African American distinction.
Yeah,
especially now that, you know, I don't know if you guys saw the report coming out with Elon Musk. They calling him the first African American to try to buy a social media and tried to buy Twitter. There was a full headline talking about first African American. And, you know, everybody had jokes. They're like, oh, all the pushback that the first African American is getting proves that there's still racism. So, I mean, what do y'all think about that? Technically, Elon Musk is African American.
No, technically he's not. Technically he's not.
I never knew that.
Yeah, technically he's not. No, legally speaking, no, he's not. Actually, so being from Africa and being American don't make you an African American legally. But let's definitely talk through this, because this is a fascinating question. I'm actually so glad we're having this conversation, and I want to put a pin in this right now, or not a pin. I want to draw a circle around us right now as a people, and just take a step back and say we are actually at a point in our work where we're actually starting to have some serious conversations, long overdue, about how we self-determine and identify who we are as a people. And I said this in my comments to the commission this week, that we've been here 400 years as a people, and it's a damn shame that we don't have a name. We've been here 400 years as a people, and we do not have a name. And actually, if there's time, or maybe not, if folks want to go actually look at the rest of that clip and hear actually Camila talk about how she identifies, and hear her say she personally does not identify as African American. She personally identifies herself as a Black American. But I want to, again, take a step back and just say we are at a place where we have needed to be for a long time. We have to get through this discussion and this question. Who are we as a people, as a specific group of people, not just a part of something we call Black, not just a part of something we may even call African American, but who are we as a people? And know that we are a specific, distinct group of people. The Black people that built this country, we are a distinct, specific group of people. Yes, we are connected to other types of Black folks all around the world. Yes, absolutely. But we have our own identity. We got our own history. We got our own culture. We are a specific, distinct group of people. And to your point, Kim, legally speaking, this is the problem that we have, and it's not our fault. This ain't our fault. This was a fault of what was done to us. Legally speaking, all of us right here are called Black/African American. All of us. That's where we are right now. I don't like it. I know some of us don't like it even more. But legally speaking, right now, the U.S. government has a name for us. It's called Black/African American. And the definition of that is, and I don't like this definition, Black/African American, anyone with origins in the Black racial groups of Africa. That is what we are legally defined as. That's what the census uses to define you. That's what the DMV uses when you pull out your driver's license right now. That's what the DMV uses. That's what all of the government money and aid and programs use to define who we are. So that is legally where we are right now. That is just the fact right now of where we are. I don't like it. I don't like that because we are invisible as a people there. We are 100% completely invisible.
According to my birth certificate, I'm American Negro.
Right, you are right. On your birth certificate, you are Negro, and that obviously was changed. I think back during the Obama years, right? They don't use Negro anymore, or they don't use Negro anymore.
Well, that's erasure, and that's that is a specific identifier that's on government documents. Would be
it's not used anymore. Right. And that's the point. That where we are.
But that's because it was taken out, like I said, for erasure purposes, probably to make our reparations fight more convoluted. So we just need to figure out a way to get it reinstated, especially for our purposes of reparations, because that's the easiest document to point to. Either you're American Negro or you ain't.
Yeah, I want to hear. I feel you, Kim, and you're absolutely right. That change from Negro or not using Negro anymore. Yeah, I wasn't around when that, or I don't remember being a part of any of those conversations when that change happened. The point is still the same. We don't have a specific whether you comfortable with Negro. To be honest with you, I don't want to be called Negro. Just personally, I don't want to be called a Negro. I
don't necessarily, think that it needs to be put back on, future documents, but historically, that's what it was. We got to call it a thing.
Yeah.
I guess that's the point, right? Like, if we were going to do a genealogy search, right, and on our records we were marked as Negro, yet if the government doesn't have a current identifier saying that Black people were Negro, how's that going to work?
Yeah, that's it. That's an important, and I want to hear what folks in the chat have to say too about this, because this is the conversation that we need to be having as a people, not just from the perspective of how we might demonstrate our eligibility for reparations from historical past documents, but also how we want to identify and self-determine who we are going forward. Who are we going forward? Because right now, legally right now, the government calls us Black/African American. I can remember being back on a call with the Census Bureau back in 2019 when they were trying to prepare us for the changes that was coming to the census in 2020. And there was a bunch of groups from a bunch of different places on that call. I'll say this quickly. And there was some Moroccans, some groups from some Moroccan organizations on that call. And they were highly upset because they are technically classified as white on the U.S. Census. And they were highly upset with the officials from the census who were saying, listen, you can mark anything you want on the census, but when we collect your information, we're going to put you in this white category. And so we have a similar problem here as a people. Right now, we have a definition and a label for us that we don't like. I personally like the categorization, the classification, American freedmen. I like that. I think that's more in line with who we are. I think Camilla made a good point too, that the phrase African American does not start in the 1980s. It starts in the 1700s. The use of the term African American to describe us goes back to the 1700s, not the 1980s. I know we point to Jesse Jackson a lot as someone who made it popular or may have introduced that. That's not true. It may be true that he made it popular, but he didn't introduce that. The term and the phrase African American goes back to the 1700s for us. Also, the phrase American freedman goes back very, very close to that too, probably to the late 1800s, right? So this is something that we have to decide as a group, especially since we're working on legislation here, as y'all know, to disaggregate and separate out of this Black racial groups thing and actually make California first as a state actually specifically have a way to identify us as a people. And again, it's a damn shame we don't have a name as a people.
Well, Chris, I think one of the things that makes this a little bit difficult, right, in terms of naming as Black people, right, is because, I mean, right now we literally have so many, and I don't know if y'all want to put your 2 cents in this, but right now we have so many ideas about what to call us right now. Like so many out there, from Aboriginals to Native Americans to Black Americans, and then you have all the acronyms, you know, from the FBAs, the ADOSs, from the B1s. I mean, you name it. So we have all these, I mean, the Muslims, the Hebrews, the Israelites, you know, we have all these kind of.
Kim said she met somebody at the conference who said he was from where did he say he was from? Kim, Alexandria.
I believe Alexandria. Yeah.
Well, go figure. So, you know, we have kind of all these ideas, you know, these Pan-African concepts, Black nationalist concepts, right, that we're dealing with. And so when you say, well, what do we call ourselves when we move forward? That's a great question, Chris. That is an excellent question. I don't have the answer because there's so many miscellaneous things that we have to think about. But that's I just wanted to put that out there because this is important. I mean, there's a lot of conversation going on right about now, and that might, and hopefully it won't convolute or make it more confusing with us fighting for reparations or legal. But I mean, what I'm telling people, look, if what you're calling yourself isn't identified currently in AB 3121, then you need to make your own claim, right? And you need to figure that out on your own, because right now we can't, I mean, there's a lot to handle right now. This is first time in history that this has happened. And so we can't have like a lot of stuff kind of going on right now. So I don't know if Sam, you want to touch on it, Kim, or Chris, you all want to touch on that, but I just want to put that one out there.
I'm just thinking about what Chris said, that Camilla was mentioning about this name going all the way back, you know, for a long time now. And even if the distinction was African American, any name that we were referred to in between now and then should be acceptable, period. Because over the course of the years, as they so-called, you know, quote unquote, became more consciously aware of their behavior and how things were changing, and we were trying to redefine our own identities, we attributed various names to ourselves, and some of them were given to us. And any historical scholar of worth they salt can go back and find a list of all the names that Black people in America were called by at any given time and went through, you know what I'm saying, were classified under. So me, myself, I think even if it stayed as African American, there still should be like a list of, yeah, and American Negro, colored, black, all this was the same people. And just as time went on, we tried to identify and come with a new name, but it still boiled down to the same distinction. And I'm like you, Chris, I don't like the term African American, but it's what everything then culminated into. It's what it all culminated into when you look at it from a chronological perspective. So it shouldn't even be a point of contention in regards to those names that exist in the past. Now, as far as people who come from outside the country and their relatives, were not direct descendants of somebody who was, enslaved here, I understand the difference between the black, and the African American distinction. So from a legal perspective, yeah, of course, it makes all the sense in the world. I'm still of the kilf that I don't want somebody else defining me, though. Never been a fan of it. It makes me think of W.B. Du Bois and the two-ness concept, when he was like, basically, am I African or am I American? You know what I mean? Am I the sinner? Am I the savior? Am I the slave or the enslaver? Am I black enough to be African but white enough to be American? And these are just some of that's why it's so important that we have to have these discussions, like you said, because these are some of the hurdles and obstacles that were systemically placed in our way to prevent us from ever even getting to this point. So it's an honor to be on the forefront of having this discussion and bringing about this change, because it's deeply rooted. It's deeply rooted. And this is division like this that prevents us from actually coming together and working as a whole for the change that we also desperately need, no matter what name we call ourselves. But it's little things like this that we have to get through that are so important. So for me, I understand the African American distinction, because from a legal standpoint, it is what it is. This is what it then culminated into. But I'm definitely for us, coming together as a collective and deciding what moniker we want to go by, what handle that empowers us as a group that we can own, that we would all feel comfortable stumping with. And with that said, I would also love to see the bridges built between all of the blacks from the African diaspora across the world, because that's what Marcus Garvey was doing when he created the Black Star Cruise Line. It was about going through all of these nations where blacks had been displaced to, and giving them ability to reconnect with one another. You know what I mean? Giving them opportunity to spend money with one another, to learn each other's tongue and each other's culture and each other's background, and just build that overall black collective back. That's what the Black Star Cruise Line and United Negro Improvement Association was focused on. So aside from us just ascribing or penciling out what we want to be called as a group, I still don't want us to isolate or be so decisive in it that we separate ourselves from our larger diaspora. You know what I'm saying? Because it's easy to fall into that discussion.
So right now, Chris, the 1604 language, this aggregation language, says African Americans that descend from U.S. chattel slavery, or African American blacks that don't. Is that close?
That's pretty close. Yeah, and yeah. That's pretty close to it. What that does is it takes what's already there, and again, this is a problem, right? Because it's a problem that we have to get through, and I think we will. Maybe I should call it a challenge, right? This is a challenge that we have to get through, and we will, because the government right now has a name for us. It's called Black/African American, and those to who, depending on who you talk to, some people like one of those, both of those, none of those. And those two things may not be the same either, depending on how you understand our history. And so what our language in AB 1604, by the way, which is what Kim is referring to, it takes the fact that we are technically classified, all of us, no matter, this is not our fault. This is a fault of what was done to us and has been being, and has continually and still done to us. That all of our fault, that all of us right now are being called Black/African American by the government. That is the government's name for us, Black/African American. So our language says, okay, let's take what's already there and let's break it up. let's say, okay, there are African Americans who are descendants of persons enslaved in this country. I like the term American freedmen for us as a categorization. And then there are African Americans or Black people who are not descendants of persons enslaved in this country, and they include what you might call African Blacks, Caribbean Blacks, and other folks also who don't fit those three groups. So while we are on, and this is to Sam's point too. And I want to talk to you about this too, because what we use this term Pan-Africanism a lot. And I think, so if you listen to Twitter a lot, from some of the Pan-African Twitter, it sounds like the Pan-African Twitter agrees with this Blackness is just one thing. But if you actually talk to some of the original Pan-Africanists, and as a matter of fact, if you talk to Dr. Javon Scott Lewis, who's on the Reparations Commission, who, by the way, was asked about this same question last week, who said, I don't identify as an African American. I identify as a Jamaican American because African American is not for me. That's for the people who built this country. I'm a Jamaican American and I'm Black. So I'm a Black Jamaican American, but I'm not an African American. This is what the Jamaican brother said. But if you talk to Javon Scott Lewis about what the actual definition of Pan-Africanism is, and let's get into that too, because there's a difference, I think. What is Pan-Africanism? What does that mean? Does that mean that there's just one Black thing and everybody's it? If you have a certain level of melanin or come from a certain part of the globe, then you are Black and you are part of this Pan-African thing? Or does it mean that every single group and every single place where there's Black people, where there's a specific group of people, has their own identity and can identify as themselves and can empower themselves, and then we are also a part of a larger family too. So just like your cousin is himself or herself, and then they're also a part of the family, but they have their own identity too. That's what Dr. Javon Scott Lewis calls Pan-Africanism. So that kind of Pan-Africanism, at least in his thinking, allows us to be ourselves individually and call ourselves, we could call ourselves whatever we want here. American freedmen, whatever we want. Some people like foundational Black American. Some people like Negro. We could call ourselves whatever we want. Great. We are our own specific people. And then at the same time, we are also a part of a larger family of other folks too, who themselves have their own thing. Because like Dr. Javon Scott Lewis said, he considers himself a Jamaican American, not an African American, or not just Black, or he knows that he's different from the Bajans, and that they're different from the Trinis, and they're different from the folks in St. Kitts and St. Croix in the Bahamas and Nigeria and Tanzania and South Africa, et cetera, et cetera. That's a part of the conversation here too. But as Sam said, I think we're all saying, and as Kim, you are pointing to also, and Umoya said too, this is a conversation that we are finally having as at least our generation is finally starting to have, about how we self-determine who we are. And Dr. Lewis said this at the hearings last week too. Our community is going to have to figure out who we are. We're going to have to figure out who we are. And Sam, you said it. We've been told who we are for so long. And right now the government is telling us you Black or African American, and we define you as this. Anybody with origins in the Black racial groups of Africa. I don't see myself in there specifically. I see me as a part of that maybe, but where is the people who built this country specifically in there? Where's our specific group in there? It's buried in there. And that's why the language that we have in 1604, Section 2 specifically, would change that at least here in the state of California.
And I just want to mention too, oh wait, hold on a second. I just got to do that. I should have probably done this for you too, Sam, but here we go.
Right on. That's dope.
For Sam and Chris. Oh, hold on, I got to get one more for Kim.
I'm about to say, get Kim in there.
That's dope.
All right. So, and I just also want to say that people who are fighting for reparations for Black American descendants from U.S. chattel slavery, that oftentimes, and I don't know why the idea or concept came about that somehow we're anti, Black immigrant or something like that. I don't know where that rumor came or existed, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, where'd you guys hear this rumor? How do you guys, thought this idea started?
Radio silence.
Mm-hmm.
I'll jump in here. I think a lot of it's online, to be honest with you, and so that's why I hear that most of the time online. I also think it comes from a misunderstanding of the actual things people be saying. But I know for a fact, and I work with y'all for years, and even those who I haven't worked with for years, we are focused on doing for specifically our group of people, and we don't make any apologies about that. We're very unapologetic about that. We're very strong and focused on that, and we are very focused specifically on bringing up our people, our specific group of people who built this country, because we are owed a specific debt. That's why we say reparations is for those of us who are descendants of U.S. slavery and Jim Crow, those of us who built this specific country. That's who the 40 acres and a mule was promised to. That was promised to our folks, our family, right? We are their descendants. We are the American freedmen. We are their descendants. So that's who we specifically focus on, and so that's what we do. And people are going to say things about anything and everything you do. You can't really always be 100% focused on that. But from where we work and from the work that we've been doing, y'all know we are focused on bringing up our specific community, bringing up our specific people specifically, and that's where we got to start, and that's where many of us want to focus all of our work, and that's what we're doing.
All right. Well, we're in an hour.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I'll let you go real quick, bro.
Okay.
We're actually an hour into the program, and I was going to play the communications clip, but maybe we can just skip that and just wrap it up if y'all cool with that. And I'm sorry, Sam, go ahead, brother.
It's okay. I'm following your guidance. So I just want to say, in regards to what Chris was saying, make it clear to a lot of people who are listening about us being unapologetic about seeing the upliftment of our people. Our love for ourselves doesn't translate to a hate for y'all or hate for others, because a lot of people would make the mistake of drawing that conclusion. And to bring it down to even a micro scale, my love for myself doesn't translate to somebody else. If I want to eat right, if I want to sleep right, you know what I'm saying? If I want to take a moment and meditate and get my mind right, or go out on a vacation, that's self-care. This is self-love. I need what's best for myself in order to function optimally. You understand? And it's the same for our larger body. It doesn't translate into a hate for other groups or anybody else, but you have to take care of self first and foremost, or you got nothing. And so when we look at the state of African Americans, or people who, under that, people who have been here, who are the descendants of chattel slavery, it's the same thing. Like Chris just said, there's a debt that we are owed. Slavery was the first technology, you know what I'm saying? The first form of mass automation. And many people need to understand that. It cut labor costs. It created jobs that they could do. It took away the jobs that they did not want to do, and maximized profits. And it built the wealth of this nation and many other nations. We were the machine. You understand what I'm saying? And that's how we were treated. And the resources was our black bodies, and they just worked us to death. You can't tell someone, hey, we're going to take off running from this line. And then you say, wait a minute, let me run 300 laps. And then once you get on your 300 lap, you say, okay, now go. And then you ask me, well, why are you behind? We running on the same track. Why are you behind? You can catch up. Man, you ran 300 laps and held me in place. So we just back for what we owe. You know what I'm saying? And we doing it the proper way and the respectful way, and God is with us. And many people just need to understand that our love for self doesn't translate to a hate for others. And the last thing I want to say, I'm going to be quiet, Brother Umoya, was I really love what you shared about Pan-Africanism. And something I used to talk to the men about in prison was being careful not to be drawn into an argument between ethnicity and nationality, lineage and governance. And I seen that happening quite often when people would talk about like, well, I'm not black, I'm brown, or I'm Hebrew, and all these different things. And when we talk about Pan-Africanism and people being from different cultures and nations, it's like, okay, your governance, how you govern yourself, that's one thing. We're not the same people when it comes to governance. When it comes to lineage, where we all stem from, where we come from, we are the same people. And that whole argument just needs to be like separated so people can be clear about that. I'm not saying that we're the same people and I need to govern you and tell you what to do. You don't need to live under my rule or live by the standards of our culture, our subculture. I'm just saying recognize that all of us were deposited here or made it here some way when we all came from that big black continent over there, period. So I'm always careful not to even get into those type of discussions and debates and arguments because it's cut and dry, even though we tend to make it complicated. And then that's the part that we have to work on is uncomplicating it, because even though it's simple, it's very real. And it's the basis of separation. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And that's the same thing that we're talking about right here is lineage and nationality, ethnicity, and nationality, governance and lineage. They're two different things. We just got to draw the distinction. Right on, bro.
All right, fam. So yeah, I guess let's wrap it up because I was gonna go into a little bit about the whole communications thing with Dr. Grills and Mr. Stoll, who finally came on. I know there was some technical issues that was kind of going on, but I think we'll just, it's for those who celebrate Easter. We appreciate you coming through on your Easter day. Appreciate. I know we do have an outro clip with Dr. Amos Brown. But we do have like a couple more minutes, family. So if y'all want to call in, y'all can. I'm just going to go ahead and put the call number up and then we could bounce. But I don't know, Chris, I think it was something specific that you
I want to get into one, two things in these last couple of minutes. By the way, fam, call in. Let us know what you think. 720-740-9699. 720-740-9699. How do you identify Black or African American, American Freeman, FBA, something else? Access code 657-2569. 657-2569 when you call in. What is your way of identifying? How do you classify yourself? How do you talk about yourself? Is it Black? Is it African American? Something else? American Freeman? Let's have this conversation because this is a very important conversation. I do want to touch on a couple of things that were talked about at the hearings that I think we definitely want to come back to and have some conversations about. One thing is and big shout out to Shanna. Right on. We need to speak on the communications where you have folks attention. Right on.
Yeah, maybe we could touch on it for about a minute or two.
Yeah, definitely. And so let's definitely get to that. By the way, big shout out to Shanna. Shanna was down there with us in San Francisco at the Reparations Commission hearings too. So big shout out to you, Shanna. Big shout out to the Bay Area family. Also, Josiah, Carol, Darlene, Iris, everybody that was out there was up. Peace to y'all. Big love, big love. So I want to touch on two things. One, the proposals. The Reparations Commission put out a series of proposals in the first report that's coming out in June, and we got a chance to see the draft report last week, and there was a bunch of proposals. One of the proposals that the Reparations Commission is making, I think we touched on it earlier, which is that the Reparations Commission is recommending that the state. Oh, big shout to you too. Everything B1. Good to see you down there too. So the Reparations Commission is recommending, as we said earlier, that the state pass legislation like ACA 3 to end slavery and involuntary servitude in the state of California. So that is one big proposal. Also recommended, like we were just talking about, that the state pass AB 1604 specifically because of what it says in Section 2, which it actually requires the state of California to start breaking down this Black or African American category and specifically create a way to collect information for Black folks who descend from U.S. slavery. I said this in my comments that right now you cannot go anywhere in the state of California, any city, any county in the state and say how many Black folks in this part, how many Black folks here are descendants of U.S. slavery in this country. That information does not exist at any state level. That is a problem. We are invisible to the state. That is a problem. So AB 1604, which has language that our folks wrote at CJEC, Coalition for Just and Equitable California, has that in it to make that change and make the state do that. The Reparations Commission on this week said, hey, we want to encourage the state to adopt that. You have something to jump in on?
Yeah, brother. We actually got a caller on the line.
Okay.
But I don't know if you want to continue or you want to.
Let's get the caller, man.
All right. So let's bring in the caller here.
Welcome.
All right, caller. Can you say your name and where you're calling from, please?
Hello, my name is Jason, and I'm from Sacramento, California.
Hey, welcome, Jason.
What's up, bro? Sac Town.
Peace, Jason.
Hello.
In the building. All right, brother. So what are your thoughts, man?
Me, myself, I'm a freedman American. I found my ancestry through the Dawes Roll, which is a roll that has a list of ancestors. Say like my great-grandfather, he was listed there with the 5 civilized tribes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Dawes Rolls, but they have freedmen Americans listed within the Dawes Rolls along with the Native American tribes. Me personally, I identify as, native to America only because when I did my ancestry, basically it goes back 400 years plus in this country. It doesn't mention anything about coming off the slave ships from Africa, but even my great-grandparents, they walked on the Trail of Tears with the Native Americans during the Indian Removal Act. Shifted all the way from South Carolina all the way to Oklahoma, where my grandfather was born, and then they migrated from Oklahoma to California, like most Black Americans. Another thing that I wanted to put an input on is the Freedmen's Bureau. If it's an act that's already inside of Congress, then why do we not reenact it and, have money being put out from that agency that's run by, freedmen ourselves?
That's a great point. Anybody? I know we briefly talked about the American freedmen. Chris is ready.
Yeah, I'm talking about the business jump. But yo, bro, first of all, Jason, what's up? Yo, first of all, bro, let's connect, bro. I'm in Sacramento too, so let's make sure we connect, bro. I put my Twitter in the chat and in the YouTube comments. Let's connect, because we could definitely use someone with your experience and background and ancestry in the work that we're doing here in Sacramento for reparations. So let's make sure that we connect, fam, for sure. Thank you for your comments too, because you actually raised a great point. I want to answer your question and tie it right back to what I was saying about the proposals that the commission recommended just on Thursday. The commission recommended, just like what you were just saying, that the state established two things first: the Office of African American / Freedmen Affairs to address past harms and potential future harms, and include an administrative arm to assist claimants in filing for eligibility for reparations. So that's the first thing that the commission actually recommended this week. Something with what you just said, something similar to what you just said, that there be an Office of Freedmen Affairs. The second thing that they recommended is that the state establish an Office of Freedmen Genealogy to support potential claimants with genealogical research and to confirm eligibilities for reparations. So it sounds like you did some of that work already yourself. But two things: the Office of Freedmen Affairs and Office of Freedmen Genealogy. Those are two recommendations from the California Reparations Commission just this week.
Yeah, that was an agency that actually wanted to start something like that. It was a personal project where it helps other freedmen and people of Native ancestry to help them get their tribal citizenship, because freedmen are now allowed tribal citizenship back to the 5 civilized tribes. So like me, back in 2018, I went and got my my Cherokee tribal ID, and citizenship back in 2018 when they gave us citizenship rights, because they denied us citizenship rights for almost it's been almost 100 years.
Wow.
Right on, brother. Right on.
Congratulations.
Do you get any tangibles with your citizenship rights?
I mean, I would say that not only does the United States owe its reparations, but also the 5 civilized tribes that are listed by the United States government also owes freedmen's also reparations. And
But aren't Native Americans already getting forms of reparations? I'm wondering if with your citizenship you're entitled to any forms of reparations that the natives currently get.
Well, they in the Dawes rules they have us listed underneath the 2 types of citizenship. So they have us under Cherokee by blood, and then they have us as Cherokee freedmen. So there's a classification between the two. Freedmen haven't been given citizenship since, I want to say the late 1800s. So, the reparations for the Native Americans when they got theirs was way before they even allowed us to be citizens in the Cherokee or Choctaw or any other nation.
So
of course they got their reparations. The people were Indian by blood, but the American freedmen and stuff, they haven't received that through any of the Indian nations. They kind of kept that to themselves.
So just to be clear, basically you're not getting, as Kim mentioned, you're not getting any tangibles right now based on your status.
We do, like for school, like right now, currently I'm in school, we get scholarships and we get grants and, assistance from the Cherokee nations now that they allowed us to be citizens. But from what I was talking about with another people, because my grandfather, he was born on the reservation. So he was born in Bayan, Oklahoma, on the Cherokee reservation. He was never given Cherokee citizenship, even though he was born on the reservation. His father had Cherokee citizenship, but he wasn't born in Oklahoma. He migrated from South Carolina during the Indian Removal Act.
Yeah,
So the Cherokee Nation, and from what I understand, he's been traveling with the Cherokee Nation, and they claim to be the true Cherokees. And from what I understand, that what they did was when they did the Dawes rules, they switched everyone's names around. They went and turned around, called themselves Indians, and then they called freemen. It's kind of like a switcheroo type thing. But from what people are claiming is that they actually took our identities as the original Cherokee people and, thus labeled us as freedmen slaves.
Yeah, I think that's why, this is so important to understand about lineage in itself and ethnicity. Because even if like you do a DNA test, right, that your DNA could literally actually go back to, and most of our DNA, actually everybody's DNA, according to, geneticists, actually goes back to Africa, right? We're all African. Mm-hmm. But to actually say, okay, kind of who was here, what happened at that particular time, like you could be Negroid black looking, or you could be quote unquote Mongoloid looking or whatever. And there is a possibility, and this is for a whole nother show, right? Being on the same land, looking quote unquote different, but even maybe speaking in the same languages or not. I mean, I don't know. So that's why like lineage is very important. And that's why we're trying to distinguish us with this reparations part, right? I'm sorry, go ahead.
The strange thing about the freedmen is that they actually own a lot of the land in Oklahoma. Like my grandfather, when he was removed off of from South Carolina, where the original band of Cherokees were, where they had their native land. He was given 180 acres of land in Oklahoma. So we're currently heirs to 180 acres of land in Oklahoma. But the Cherokees, when they were moved to Oklahoma, they wasn't given any land. So how come the Native Americans that are over there right now, they don't own the land? And most of the land in Oklahoma is owned by, like, why would the government give free slaves land and not the actual Cherokee Indians? That's the thing I don't get, unless they were the original Cherokee Indians and they own most of the land. My great-grandfather, he was a farmer on that land until something happened in 1930s and 40s when the Ku Klux Klan was running around. They burned down the farm, and after that, they moved to California. But they wanted to leave Oklahoma because as farmers, the government was giving, you know, like white farmers and everyone compensation to not grow nothing. And then they weren't giving freedmen anything to produce nothing on their farm. So there was a large gap, you know, with the farmers, people who own farms, if they were black or if they were white. The black farmers didn't receive any compensation from the United States government, while white farmers were getting paid to, you know, hardly do anything with their farm.
All right, thanks, Jay, for calling in, man. Really appreciate you for calling in. Chris, he put his information in. Get in touch with him, man, and yeah, we'll have a good day, brother. Appreciate for you calling in.
Okay.
Right, Chris.
Thank you for your time, and you guys are doing a great job at what you guys are doing. Talk with you guys soon.
All right, peace.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
All right, Sam. Well, we know you got to get out, brother. So, any last words, man?
I'm honored to be on the front line with y'all. That's for sure. And everybody that tuned in, everybody that's paying attention, you on the front line with us too. And we're honored to be here with you all. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, ETM, for bringing this information to the people. I love y'all, man. We got a bunch of work to do. And thank you for this opportunity to be here today to talk about ACA 3 and reparations.
All right. And Shanna in the chat, you're going to be on the show. We're going to have you on the show. Talk about, you think you're going to get away, all up in the chat.
You're going to get away.
You're not going to get away. You're going to be on the platform because we want to hear from you. So, yeah, we're going to talk about this communications thing. We're going to open it up and just kind of let everybody know what's going on. But, yeah, we're kind of out of time right now. But, yeah, for the next, I think we might come back on Sunday. I don't know yet. We are in conversation right now with Camilla in terms of having her on the platform. So hopefully we can either have her on this Sunday or the following Sunday, but we'll definitely have a conversation about this communications thing that's kind of going on right now.
That's awesome.
All right, brother.
All right.
All right. Peace and blessings, family. Have a blessed rest of your resurrection day. Just enjoy with your family, time to reflect, and much love.
Much love.
Thank you. Thank you. Same to y'all. And we over here accepting any invitation to come on and be a part of the movement and help and talk, you know, about what people can do to get involved or just to evolve in the conversation. And I just want to reiterate what Chris said earlier. I would love to see my wife on your platform, man. She's done a lot of great work. She does a lot of great work. She supports reparations, and she's a major part of ACA 3. So I just wanted to plant that seed. Thank you, y'all. Y'all be safe.
All right, peace. Hey, Chris, real quick, man, just one words of wisdom, brother, and then we're gonna be out because we want to hear from you, bro.
Wow. Appreciate everybody. This is historic. Everybody's a part of this history. I just want to appreciate everybody once again. Thank you to ETM Media. Thank you to Kim, to Umoya, to CO, to everybody that's in the chat or watching live, everybody that's going to watch the comeback, the playback. and we're going to continue. There's one thing that I want to mention too. One other thing I want to touch on, which was the conversation around the economists, right? There was some talk about the economics, and remember that part? It was a big deal. It was, can we do cash payments with this, and can we do cash payments with that, and what about
Right. I remember give them ownership of the Golden Gate Bridge. That stuck out to me.
Right, Kim want the Golden Gate Bridge. Right, there's this we had the economists pull up, and we're gonna do some more conversations on this. So I just want to preview some of this for the family too. So in addition to the communications conversation, we want to have, I think, some conversations about the economists and the economic models. Because fam, 1 year of the task force is almost over. Now we done with the study part. Now we're moving into the develop the reparations part. So listen, think about this. 1/2 of the task force job of 1 year is supposed to do the studying and the collecting evidence. That's done. Now we into the nitty gritty. What's it gonna cost? What is it gonna look like? What is it? What we gonna actually do for people? That's the whole next year. So most, if not all, of the reparations hearings for the next year is going to be about what are we actually going to do. We studied it. We talked about it. What are we actually gonna do about it? What is the compensation? How much is it? What is the restitution? What is it? What does it come in the form of? What's the rehabilitation? What's the satisfaction? What's the guarantees of non-repetition? That's the rest. That's the whole next year. So congratulations, we made it, y'all. We made it to the halfway point almost, and now we're moving into the what's it gonna be. So that's why this economics question, I'm taking way more than 1 minute here. That's why this economics question is so important. We had the economists, we had Dr. Darity, A. Kirsten Mullen, Thomas Kramer, Sister Campbell, Bill Spriggs, come and talk to the commission this week about you could do it the national way or you could do it the state way. And there's we gotta understand what they was talking about, because the commission didn't really I feel like 100% understand what they was talking about, what they were saying. So we got to do some understanding and some learning as a people about what they were actually saying. Can you do cash payments with both, on both sides, or one side only? I think, to be honest with you, you can do cash payments on both sides. I don't think there's any disagreement there. There may be how much different on one side versus the other, but let's have the conversation.
Yeah, maybe that'll be a conversation for the Twitter space, and I'll definitely be looking into how much residuals that Golden Gate Bridge bring in with that $7 holla. It's $7 to get across the toll now, so I mean I know they raking it in.
Oh, Kim, you get me excited about royalties and tax residuals and dividends. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, family. Well, I'm going to let y'all get to the rest of your day with your families, your loved ones, and all of that. Peace, love, and lineage-based reparations.
And we must keep in mind that we are a quality folk. It's not always quantity, it's quality. And you have been, as members of this task force, quality, erudition, excellence. And you about empowering a people, and for such a time as this, God has permitted us to speak truth to the evil powers of this nation, this state, and this world who don't like us because our skin is black. Aristotle said it during the 4th century BC. The Ethiopian and the black man were inferior, and he said it in his work, The Politics. And secondly, he said, we will never be capable of self-governance We would always have to have the white man and the white woman over us. And that's the reason why number 45 uttered that ignorance that Africa was an asshole because it knew not respect our humanity. Finally, practically, numerically, in this sanctuary, we are here where 2 or 3 are gathered together in the name of justice, love, and equality. The divine one of the universe will fight our battles, and we're going to have victory. And in this town right now, you see, we got so many demons to deal with, so many evils to fight. During this entire week, what is happening in the so-called city of St. Francis? There has been a so-called redistricting committee of this city. And for the last 2 weeks, what has been happening? They are attempting to gerrymander the black community out of San Francisco in districts 5 and 10. So our troops have been divided, fighting on every front. Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me this personal privilege, but I think we need to stop beating ourselves up about the crowd is not here. We got a crowd, a number that likened to that of John's number that he saw on the Isle of Patmos, number that could not be numbered. Our cause is just, it's right, and there will be results and outcome if we just stay focused and keep our eyes on the prize of America paying up for all the evil and the dirt that they've done to black folk in this nation. Thank you.
Madam Chair, before you proceed, I'd like to raise a point of information.